So congratulations on your reality. I watched it last night and I watched it again this morning because I wanted to get as much as I could from it because it's such an impactful project. Where did the idea for this first come from?
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. The idea for it came from kind of two places. Number one is I wanted to create a project which is sort of like psychological or has something to do with mm, yeah, something psychological, basically because the topic interests me. But when I actually accidentally came across gaslighting as a term, because my husband now, back then we were just dating, he sent me this article on gaslighting. And when I read it, I was like, wow, this sounds like a friend of mine, like all the red flags are exactly the same. And she was going through a really terrible relationship slash breakup where she just became a shell of herself. It was just kind of similar to the transition of the main character where, you see a person, she's like super lovely and smiley and happy. And in the end of it, it's just like nothing left, like no energy, and it was so devastating to see her that way. And I was like, wow, so this is what it is. You know, when you kind of like can put a name to something. So I just wanted to raise awareness really on this topic. And then obviously as a filmmaker, I also thought that it's just a very interesting uh I don't know. Like I think just psychology, people are just so fascinating, and in a good way and in a bad way, sometimes. So I think just being able to like dissect that has been very, very interesting.
Through the writing process, what kind of research did you do other than having read that article and
Mhm.
having somewhat experienced this through your friend? In order to treat this with the severity that needs to be treated because it is something that goes on constantly. What kind of research went into this?
Sure. So I take research really, really seriously. This is like the most important thing for me. And I think that's also one of the reasons why it connected with the audience in the way it did. Because I tried to make it as true to life as possible. And I did so much. I read books, I watched interviews, I interviewed people myself. There's a lot of really good content on YouTube as well, other than obviously like my short film is just it's somehow somewhat educational, but it's kind of also entertainment. Whereas there's a lot of educational content on that topic where therapists explain how it works and how you can protect yourself from gaslighters, like what the red flags are. All that kind of stuff is so interesting and very insightful, and definitely can be very helpful to people who really, really need it for sure. So, yeah, I've done months and months of research before I even started writing it.
Mhm. As a writer, you have an image of what you think the project's gonna look like, but then you also acted in it. How, how did things change in the process of making this?
I think Oh yeah, things change all the time. I think it started obviously the writing process is a thing in its own, like it's its own thing basically because you write the first draft and then you rewrite it and then you rewrite it again. And then one of the things I've done quite early in the process as well is that I submitted my short film script to like a critique group, and that was still like that was before COVID, so they were still like meet up in person. Obviously now people do as well, but and people kind of like gave me some critique as well, and I could improve it on the back of that as well. And funnily enough, through that group as well, is how I met the director because he really liked it and he wanted to come on board. So that was super exciting. And then, yeah, so it's kind of like writing and rewriting. And then the second part is like once you start assembling your team and people come with their own kind of interesting visions and creative ideas, I think that's when it kind of really just gets shaped into like a finished product, which is super cool too. A friend of mine, for example, the soundtrack, right? This friend of mine who is a singer, well, back then we didn't really know each other that well. Now obviously we're much closer. But yeah, she's like, I really like the subject. She's like, can I do the soundtrack for you? And I'm like, yeah, please. You're really talented, so that'll be amazing. And she's like, the reason she wanted to do it is because she's experienced something like that, and she just really wanted to be a part of the project. And the song really came out, like really heartfelt. You could tell that it was coming from a personal place as well.
Definitely. Let's talk a little bit about the director because you gave such a vulnerable performances. It's very subtle, but you have a lot of feeling in each scene. There's a lot of emotion coming across. How important was it to find a director you could be comfortable enough with and that would treat this serious enough that you gave this performance?
Yeah, really important. I mean, I think I just got so lucky because when I was putting this project together and when I was submitting it, obviously for critique, etc., I didn't really think about I knew I didn't want to direct it myself because I just thought that that'd be too much for me. As you say, there is a lot of very emotional scenes and you kind of just want to be in it rather than thinking, oh, how's the light looking in this shot or so it was important for me that I outsource it and find someone who is, happy to do. But I think because it was kind of like one of my first major projects, I I didn't like have not that I didn't have big expectations. I wanted to be really good, but I didn't I I don't know. I just kind of like went with the flow because what happened like once Top who's the director suggested or she's like I'd like to direct it and I'm like yeah sweet let's do it and I just said yes but I and then later thought about wow I haven't even watched any of his work. So it could have really backfired on me, but I think I tend to listen to my intuition a lot, and I just had that vibe from him that I could tell that he could tap into these vulnerability. Like I think people you can see sometimes, when they're a little bit more emotionally attuned. So I think that I was like, yeah, it feels like he's the right person to do it somehow. And yeah, he was amazing. He really contributed a lot in to the idea in terms of like how the scenes were shot, like a lot of the angles are a little bit strange and all of that is designed to make the audience feel a little bit awkward and a little bit like not at ease, which is how the main character is feeling. So we try to put um the audience as much in the shoes of the character as possible through the feeling of it.
Definitely. There's definitely that uncomfortable feeling, but there's also a feeling of kind of being trapped. There's
Mm.
I think what a lot of people don't realize about gaslighting is it's not always like to an extreme. It could be very minor. And I think that's something that this really does. Like there's little things that happen between the two characters that are minor, but that have that feeling. Finding your cast member, like how did you go about casting them, and how difficult is it to create that type of rapport with somebody you're meeting for the first time?
It's a good question. So Kyle, I cast, we did like a read through together a while ago, and I don't know, I was actually struggling to find the right person. I kind of wanted for someone I knew to play it, so I asked first I asked another friend of mine but he just literally got cast in like a TV show, so his dates clashed. And then I don't even know. I think Kyle actually either he messaged me out of the blue, or maybe he even like caught wind that I was casting it, and he's like, "Oh, hey, how about me?" And I was like, actually, I think that you would do a really good job with that because he's got this charm and confidence, and that's a lot of narcissists have that. Not that he is one, he's a lovely guy, but he can pull it off really, really well. And I think he did a really good job on that for sure.
Definitely agree.
Yeah, and then the friend was also someone who I knew, and I thought that she would just do a really good job with it, and she did, yeah. So I kind of tried to stick with because it's a small project, so it was like I really wanted to make sure that people who would be cast are definitely people who I've kind of worked with before in one way or another. However, now we're kind of like thinking, well, we are in the process of trying to raise investment for like the feature film version of your reality. And there, there's way more characters. It's going to be much more tricky. And obviously, I won't be able to just use people I know, which is fine. It's good to also, give other people the opportunity to audition. But I think that probably we'll have to use a casting director for that, just to make sure that we definitely get the right people.
Definitely. And now since you're trying to expand this character, does embodying a character like this affect you personally? Like, do you start seeing people different? Like, what kind of mentality does bringing this character into you cause?
Yeah, I think you do. I reckon for me, it was more even just researching the topic and writing it more than even playing it. I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand, I think, because when you obviously get handed a role, you would research it as well anyway. But for me, because I already did it during the writing process and then obviously played the role, so it was kind of like reinforced again. Um, I think you get more attuned to the red flags. You kind of try either not let it affect you if some people act strangely towards you or demand things that are unreasonable or I think I've been very lucky because I try and surround myself. I'm very careful about my friends. So in terms of I'm very picky and I try and surround myself with people who are real friends and who uplift me and make me feel good. And I just don't have time for people who don't. So for me, that's how I operate. And I probably maybe have become even more harsher or like harsher with this rule since doing the film because I probably also realized how many people are out there that maybe don't have your best interests at heart. Maybe not even like directly from my own experiences, but even reading the comments of people who have watched the short film. I knew that this was a problem, like the gaslighting and manipulation and stuff, but I didn't realize it was that bad. So it really kind of shocked me in many ways, and it made me realize that, there's a lot of terrible people out there. There's a lot of good people as well, but it's just, yeah, you have to be realistic, I guess.
Yeah, there definitely is a lot of people we should be wary of. But like you said, you've gotten a great response for this. You've gotten people commenting. You have people sharing their stories in their comment. How does that make you feel as a filmmaker?
It's very touching. It's so touching. I mean, the first time people start like the first couple of like weeks and months and people started really actively sharing their stories, I was really overwhelmed by I think I even did a video on YouTube as well where I was like replying to their comments and like wow, this is really open up and talk about and I think a few things really touched me the most is when people say before watching this, I thought I was crazy. I thought that I was the problem. I've been constantly told that, something's wrong with me, but now I know that I'm not, and it's not me, and it's the other person, and I need to be kind of more careful and protect myself. And I think that as a filmmaker is really all I care about. At the end of the day, it's about making an impact on people and maybe hopefully changing someone's life for better. So like that is such a reward for me. I don't think like any awards or any like whatever would measure up to that, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Well, congratulations on this project. It is very impactful. It was a very necessary project. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.